Dan emailed me and he said, "Hey, I just got back from a trip where I took a bunch of photos and videos." It sounded like it was a cycling trip because he mentioned putting the iPhone and GoPro that he was using in a mount. And he said, "Hey, I'm adding these images back into my photo library now that I'm back home. And the thing is that because I was using this mount, it was actually a little bit crooked. Everything was shot at off by about 8 degrees, so I had to go into all my images and do an 8 degree adjustment, which is pretty easy to do with the cropping tool in Photos, right? You can go in there and you can just make the adjustment. I think you can also even batch that if you want. And he had a question related to that. He said, now that I have all these adjustments made, Photos has that feature where you can revert to original, which means that if you make an adjustment and you want to go back and undo it, like his tilt adjustment, you can do that quickly and easily. And he said, hey, that's great if I want to ever get back to the originals, but because these are all crooked and I really want them straight and I've just straightened them, I don't really need those originals anymore, do I? And aren't my edits and the originals just taking up a bunch of extra space? So can I get rid of those originals and just keep the edited versions? And the reality is, Dan, actually, the originals are taking up all the space, but those edited versions, they're not taking up that much space at all. And that's because the Photos app is pretty smart. When you actually go in and edit a photo, what it does is it stores the information, the metadata about the edits, along with generating a smaller JPEG preview that's used in the Photos app as you're browsing around. But all the edits are actually applied in real time to the photo. So it's not like it's storing an extra copy of the edited version. So it's not taking up all that space. If you go in to actually export or share the image, then and only then will it take that metadata, the information from the database, and generate the edited photo, the edited version of the photo for that export or to be sent off to be shared. And at that time, it uses that lists of edits and stuff from the database, from the iPhotos database that are stored there to make all of those adjustments. And this is kind of similar to how albums work too, right? Apple doesn't just create duplicates of photos and put them in other folders. You create an album and everything else is just a reference to the original collection, but the photos aren't duplicated. They're not taking a bunch of extra space. So the more edits you do, it will use a little bit more space to kind of save that data into the Photos database and a bit more for those JPEG preview images, but it's not really like you're taking up, duplicate amounts of space. You're not storing that big high-res version of that photo over and over and over again every time you edit it. So as an example, I went in to kind of look at my photo library, and my overall photo library is about 150 gigabytes, 150.86 gigabytes to be exact. The originals folder, when I go in, and you can actually go into your photo library, even though it's a single library file, if you right click on it and you say show package contents, it's actually just more or less a folder. I'm kind of simplifying it, but it's a little package, and you can go in there and you can see all the original stuff. Now, don't mess around in there too much, and I would advise having a backup first. You don't want to, tweak anything in there, but you can go poke around. And so inside there's an originals folder, and that stores all of your original images. And in my case, it's about 117.25 gigabytes. So out of that 150, most of those are the original files. And then there's a resources folder, which I read stores all of those preview JPEGs. In my case, that's about 28.1 gigabytes. And that left about 5.5 gigabytes of other random data, metadata, other files, and those sorts of things. So if I do the math, and if I'm doing the math right, that means the edits and all the extra data are taking up roughly about 20% of my total photo library storage, which honestly, for everything that Photos does, not too bad. And so I don't think you need to worry about it too much. Again, it's not eating up a ton of storage, and I think the features and functionality you get of even being able to go back to the originals, even if you never do, is probably worth it. So I wouldn't stress about it too much, and there's a little kind of insight into how Photos works, and I hope that helps kind of alleviate any stress you might have from the storage. And sounds like a great trip. So I hope you got some really great shots there.